better? All right, let's get the meeting started back. And at this time, we will go to Fisheries Management Committee Chairman Jeff McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman Griggs. At this time, I'll ask Chief of Fisheries Bobby Wilson to come forward to talk about the tournament trail.
AKA the fish heads.
Fish head? Yeah, okay.
It's not a bad thing. Thank you, Commissioner McMillan. Let's see here. Hang on one second.
12 years on the commission, you finally get.
Might help if I have my glasses on.
I got 16.
I got them.
Can you hit those lights?
Yes.
Great.
Commissioner Baker had asked if I would look into what's called the Alabama Bass Trail. And it was, see if maybe the agency could consider something like that or see what all was involved with it. And so I did. I called the chief of fisheries in Alabama and asked them some questions, or asked him a question about their involvement with the Alabama Bass Trail. And basically they have about 12 or 13 bodies of water that they advertise every year on their website. To go fishing for some type of tournament. The trail itself is organized and run by, I think it's the North Alabama Tourism Group, who also has done a lot of advertising for the fishing in the northern part of the state. And so they run the trail itself. They get sponsorships from various groups and from organizations. If they have it in a particular city, they try to get some type of sponsorship or assistance from that particular city or Chamber of Commerce. The state of Alabama, the Game and Fish folks, their only involvement is that they are advisors to this organization, but they don't contribute any money or any funds or anything like that. So they let the outside folks handle it, but they post it on their website. And I looked at the website. It's a pretty impressive thing that they do. They have some excellent tournaments that they have on their lakes and really good write-ups. They have newsletters and all that, so they spend a lot of time doing that. So anyway, that's basically it, that the Alabama Game and Fish folks are advisors on it. They post it on a website, but they don't fund it in any way, and they don't really run it. It's run by an outside group. But in looking into this, it got us to talking about something that we did as an agency about 7 or 8 years ago. At the time, Director Myers had asked if the Fisheries Division, if there was anything we could think of or any way we could figure out a way to promote fishing in Tennessee and make it even better than it is. And so we came up with the concept of a Tennessee fishing trail. And it was kind of modeled after the same thing Alabama's Bass Trail is, and that's the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail that they have down there. And so we were thinking the same thing. We could do something like that. We would look at the best of our fisheries. We have such a wide diversity of fisheries all across our state. And Mr. Myers said, okay, if you had unlimited money or $20 million, I don't remember which one it was, what would you do? How could you improve, even make fishing even better? And so we got our biologists to go out and look at their bodies of water and give an idea. We had a rating sheet and a scoring sheet and all that, and submitted what they thought were their best, and we looked at it and sort of the idea behind it, or the concept, was to provide this is kind of our phrase that we like to say, that's kind of our goal for our fisheries division in Tennessee and fisheries, is provide a diversity of angling for a diversity of anglers. I mentioned this at the last meeting and probably the one before that about stocking and why we do what we do. We have such a wide diversity of fishing experiences all across our state. We wanted to highlight the best waters that offer quality fishing. Kind of the Walmart philosophy, everything can be found close at hand. That's so if, say, a husband and wife wanted to go fishing at a fishing trail site, for example, there'd be a great place to fish, and if the wife wasn't particularly a fisher person, what could be around close by that she could occupy her time with, maybe a shopping area or something, some kind of attraction. Also, a place where there'd be campgrounds close by, or hotels or something in that vicinity of the particular body of water, we would highlight that too. So that's kind of the idea, the concept that we had with developing the trail. Initially, we had a lot of ideas. We had family fishing trail, and all these that I'm getting ready to show you encompass about 5 or 6 bodies of water, but I won't say which ones they are just because it takes up too much space. But we had the Frying Pan Trail. The family fishing trail was basically agency lakes and small state park lakes. The Frying Pan Trail would be bluegill and crappie. The stream trail, obviously, warm water streams like the Buffalo River, the Duck River, the Nolichucky, and places like that, Hatchie River. Smallmouth Bass Trail, we are the smallmouth bass state, and so we got a lot of places we could highlight that. A bass tournament trail itself, similar to what we were just talking about for the Alabama Trail. Bill Dance's picks. Our thinking at the time was who better than Bill Dance to represent maybe some type of fishing trail, instead of calling it the Tennessee Fishing Trail, maybe the Bill Dance Fishing Trail. And we thought that would be a great idea and a great person to, that's got a well-known name and could sort of be the Robert Trent Jones of Alabama Golf Trail. And a trout trail and a catfish trail. So we had all these trails. We went back to Mr. Myers. He said, no, that's too many. So, and it was too many. So he said, pick maybe the 12 best. So that was our next task, and we developed what we thought were the 12 best. The family fishing trail, we chose this, the Glen Springs Lake, Lake Graham, Natchez Trace State Park lakes. There's several park lakes as well as agency-owned lakes within the Natchez Trace State Park or Wildlife Management Area. The Bass Trail, we identified Dale Hollow, Watts Bar, and Gibson County Lake, those 3. Understand this was in 2007, before the big bass buzz at Chickamauga Lake. But still, Watts Bar is an excellent bass lake, still is. We want to highlight that. The Trout Trail, Clinch River, the South Holston Tailwater area, and the Caney Fork River are 3 of the best. And the Catfish Trail, Chickamauga, Nickajack Reservoirs, Kentucky Lake, and Mississippi River. So these were what we presented. We thought these were the 12 best. And we were getting ready to, we didn't know what we're going to do with this because we're really not in fisheries anyway, not in the business of kind of running a fishing trail, so to speak, but we could manage the populations to make the fishing well and make them good in them. So, but we had to, one of the things too we're looking at were improvements to all these places. We were looking at what it would take to improve the facilities, like do they have restrooms there, or maybe fish cleaning stations, or weigh-in sites for tournaments, or the boat ramps big enough, or what about the parking lots? They need to be expanded, and maybe even night lights or lights that folks could come in there and fish and bring their catches in at night. So we kind of looked at what it would take to these facilities that we picked and what it would cost. Also increase stocking, which would really basically mean increase hatchery space to make some of these fisheries even better than what they are. More catfish, more. We even had, at the time, this was back in 2007, I was looking at about 450,000 Florida bass that we were recommending to stock into some of those lakes. Aquatic habitat improvements like fish attractors or spawning benches or gravel, put some gravel down for better spawning habitat. And this was going to cost about $12 million back in the day, and that might have been what put a stop to it, but I don't remember exactly what. But I do remember also at that time, I mentioned the Bill Dance as a possible person whose name we could use for the fishing trail, and their group, the Bill Dance Outdoors folks, the Signature Lakes, the Bill Dance Outdoors folks, they had been contacted, I think, or maybe proposed something similar to what we were talking about to the governor's office, and particularly with the Department of Tourism and Economic Development. And we worked with them. The TWA worked with the Bill Dance folks and actually gave them our ideas of what we thought were some of the best places to fish. And he took those and added some more. So our personnel accompanied their folks at some of the sites and looked at them, and they actually had scoring sheets and things like that, and presented that to the governor. But they did a lot of places. That was Chickamauga on the Bill Dance Trail, South Holston, Watts Bar, Watauga, Douglas, Old Hickory, Cheatham, Normandy, Dale Hollow Woods, Pickwick, and then some of these smaller agency lakes and state park lakes as well. Commissioner Cox, when he was going off of his term the first time, he was, kind of got involved just a little bit. And I'm sure he'll want to speak up on this, but from what I can remember, they presented this to the governor's office, Governor Bredesen. He was very excited about it. The tourism folks were excited about it. But it was in 2008 when this all happened. As you recall, what happened in 2008 with the economy, it tanked, and there was not a lot of extra money for this sort of thing. So I think it just sort of withered on the vine and hung there. Nobody else had picked it up since then. So, Commissioner Cox, did you want to say anything else at this point before I go further?
Sure. In 2007, we worked on a Bill Dent signature lake trail, and I talked to Director Myers, and at the same time, the agency worked on their own trail. And long story short, we met with tourism, economic development, some of their agency people, and I didn't go to this meeting, but Bill's son-in-law and some of the people working on that went to the governor's office, presented it with Susan Whitaker with tourism. They provided some funding to do some of the soft cost work for scoring and some of that kind of thing, and that was produced and presented in 2008, but then the budget got short and it got put on by the wayside. But I believe if the budget hadn't happened, I believe Governor Bredesen would have funded it, and I think it was in the neighborhood of $30 million over a period of years, to not just have a trail, but the bigger picture would be, in some of the county, city people here would appreciate an economic development, tourism type trail that had the amenities of RV parking, the fish cleaning stations, the grand entrances, the landscaping, et cetera, where you could lure tourism dollars to these lakes and these communities, and it would produce a demand for hotels, restaurants, gas stations, whatever, and it would be in each one of these 15 spots or whatever would produce a pretty good destination with a lake. And it's still a good idea. And in fact, I talked to Robert Chandler the other day after you mentioned this to me, and they are going to try to pick it back up and pursue it again, and talk to Susan and see if they can get. And I was going to talk to Commissioner Cannon with his connection there, and see if we could maybe run this up the flagpole again sometime the next year or so, and present it again, see if they thought it was a good idea.
It's pretty good timing too, because we announced the Florida bass stocking proposals at the last meeting, and then I mentioned about the state parks that we might go and evaluate those, and some of those we may have to renovate, and if we do, we'll go back and restock it, but we might put some of the F1 hybrids in some of those lakes, and it'd be a great way this could segue into some kind of lake system. Some of our lakes that we're stocking with the Pure Floridas as well will be good to highlight as far as
I think
a
that's
fishing
why
trail.
this has got renewed interest, because of what you proposed. And the TDEC parks folks are considering trying to find private enterprise to run some of their facilities and try to change the way they're doing them to make them more successful. So it everything might come together at the same time, so.
That's all I've got.
All right, any questions for Chairman Wilson? None from the audience?
I do have one other thing I'd like to bring up, if I could, while I'm here. Of course, I mentioned last month, we talked about the Florida bass stocking proposal, and I went over all that at the commission meeting. The release came out and announced it, but it was kind of overshadowed by the fact that also at that meeting, we talked about the license increase, and that got a lot of attention. So, but lately, anglers are finding out there seemed to be a word spreading on it, and there's more and more people talking about it. It was an article in the Tennessean last week that generated a lot of comments. It was, that article was then posted on our Facebook page, the TWC Facebook page, and so we have a lot of folks that were interested in it. So, even prior to that being posted. We're working on something to put on a website so that people that have questions about it could go look and maybe learn a little bit more about it. And so there under hot topics was Florida Best Stocking, and then this talks about what we're going to do, and then a little bit about the history of kind of what we've done in the past and what brought us to where we are today, including the lakes that we plan on stocking. And then at the very end of this, this is the kind of the map with the locations of the ones that we're going to continue to stock. But also frequently asked questions. We have about 13 questions there that folks may go to that might answer some questions that they have. So I just want to bring it to your attention that it's now on our website, and if you have a chance to check it out, you might want to do that in case you get questions. That's all.
All right, thank you, Bobby. I guess this time we'll move on to Region 1 Manager Alan Peterson. He's going to give us a Carroll County Lake update.
Let's see, Bobby's got to put his glasses on to see. I got to take mine off. Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. Some of you already are aware that last June there was a tremendous flood event in Carroll County. They got 10 inches of rain in a very, very short period of time, and the lake that we have there, it's agency owned, 80-acre, 100-acre lake. Not to be confused with the 1,000-acre lake that they built near Huntington. Our lake is sort of between Huntington and McKenzie. The water came roaring over the top of everything, the spillway, the gates, and really caused some damage. There's 2 gates there that the water's pushing through, and they didn't take it too well. The force of the water ruptured one gate completely. You can see the water pouring out of that left gate at the bottom, and the right gate, there was water pouring out of it. Both gates were pretty badly damaged to the point where it was not possible to continue holding water in the lake. The lake was completely drained last summer, and the damage, there was enough damage in Carroll County through all this flooding that it was declared a disaster area with federal funding to help repair things. And the FEMA people met with Dwight Hensley and looked at the damage to the gates, and after the consultations, they decided FEMA would pay for this gate, but this gate here on the left that was really damaged, but there was a gate on the right that really wasn't damaged as badly, and they wouldn't use federal funds to help us repair that gate. Dwight came in and took, I guess it's been, last fall you took the gates out, so they're gone, and you can see that green grass in the background there is what used to be the lake. It's now a pretty cattle pasture. The gates were, like I said, were both removed, and so we had 2 public meetings, one in McKenzie and one in Huntington, not to tell anyone what we're going to do and not to say, here's a bunch of options, y'all can vote on it, but just to explain to everyone where we were in the process of trying to figure out what we were going to do with the situation. The difficulty comes in that with just federal funding for one of the gates, it's more costly to fix the other gate all on our own with state license dollars, especially if we use fishing license money because we don't have the federal match from Dingle Johnson that we do with the PR dollars, because lots of people been buying lots of guns over the last few years, so there's a lot of wildlife money, but not nearly as much fisheries money. So we looked at a couple of different options that we were considering. One of the options was to fix the lake back to where it was, make it a fishing lake. One other option was don't do anything. Why should we fix a 100-acre lake when they just built a 1,000-acre lake 5 miles down the road? Another option was make 1/3 lake, 2/3 wildlife viewing area, so you could use some federal wildlife dollars, which we have a lot of, to help create this. Another was to repair there's a separate thing called a sluice gate that is used to drain the lake completely, and we could fix just a sluice gate, not worry about the metal gates, so we have a small little pond. It wouldn't cost much of anything to do that. And then another option was repair the sluice gate and excavate the bottom of the lake. The lake was built in the 50s, so it's had a lot of time to sediment in. So everyone in the Region 1 Fisheries Group agrees one of the things we need to do while we have the opportunity is all that mud that's filled in the lake since the 50s is go in there and dig mud out or dig dirt out, make some deep holes, shallow holes, do something to create some structure to the bottom of the lake before we put water back in there so that it would improve the fishing. That can be costly too. So anyway, we had these options that we've been thinking about, and no one's decided anything. We haven't said we're going with that one or we're going with the other one. At some point, we all do need to sit down and say, okay, we've gotten all the input we need, we've gotten the cost figures, and we're gonna decide this is what we're gonna do. We haven't reached that point yet, but we wanted the people in that community to understand what we were thinking about and what we were considering, so they wouldn't be blindsided down the road. So we had 2 public meetings. We had one in McKenzie. It had, 240, 250 people. We filled the room we had, and we had 1/3 of the people in the room and 1/3 out in one hallway and 1/3 out in the other hallway. We couldn't get them all in. It was such a big meeting. And then we had the second meeting was in Huntington, and it didn't have nearly as many people, but we had a lot of questions from the audience after we explained all these options. Where do we go from here? What's the cost of putting the lake back as it was? Does the state have the ability to do all the work in-house, or will the TWA Board or Commission meet to look at the proposals? Which commission meeting should we go to express our opinions? And so there were a lot of questions, some of which we could answer, some of which we haven't been able to answer yet. I know Mayor McBride here has said he's talked to the National Guard people about can they help with some of this stuff. We're still looking at our options and what direction we should take to finish this thing. I guarantee, we didn't take a hand vote, but I guarantee the overwhelming sentiment at the McKenzie meeting with 250 people there was put the lake back. I don't think that impression is wrong, is it? So at this point, like I said, this is just an update of what we've done and what we're thinking about, and the kind of the sentiment of the community. But there's especially strong sentiment in the McKenzie area to put the lake back, and at some point we all need to decide here's what we're going to do. And I can answer any questions, or I've got folks out here that can answer them probably better than I can.
Chairman Griggs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank Alan and Dave Rizzuto and Dwight for driving down from Nashville. You know, a lot of time in the 6 years I've been on the commission, I've always heard that the commission's out of touch and the agency is they never want to talk to the public, and the public never has a chance. But I commend you for showing up that night and presenting this to the people in Carroll County, and I think they appreciate it too. And you talk about the sentiment. I have the petition here, that where all of them signed, wanting the restoration of the lake, so I'll give those to Director Carter. I was asked to, have y'all for witnessing the video, so I'll give it. But thank you for having that meeting, and I feel the same way those folks do. I hope that we can restore it back to its state. I won't be here to push, but I can be on the other side pushing a little bit. I'm hoping that y'all can find a way to do that. But thank you for taking the time to go down.
My pleasure.
Alan, what is the cost to repair the right gate?
Okay, the cost figures, and these are all estimates. I don't know who did the estimates, and I don't know how accurate they are, but from what the FEMA figures and their conversations with Dwight and just the gates, to fix both of them, the estimated cost, and doing a little bit of other work where there was some erosion damage just below the dam, the total cost is $275,000. FEMA would provide $135,000 because of paying for one gate. Our estimated cost for us is $140,000. And once again, this would all be state dollars, fishing license dollars, because we don't have federal matching funds. If we had a lot of extra money like we do with guns, we'd only have to pay 25% of that, and the feds would pick up the other 75. But so it'd be $140,000, and that's just for the repair work. Dwight may have some other figures on moving dirt and some other cost estimates, but
Let me back up just a minute and kind of explain what we're looking at there. There's a total of 4 gates on this dam. 2 of them are the radio gates. They're the larger ones, and the other 2 are service gates. FEMA has agreed to pay for one of the radio gates, which is the larger one, which is 20 foot wide, 7 foot tall. The other one is something that we're going to have to bear the expense of. I called a supplier in Memphis, Tennessee, and gave him the dimensions of the gate. He gave me a budget number of $70,000. I called a local contractor for an installation price. He gave me a budget number of knowing whatever I could explain to him on the phone of $20,000. So that's a total of 90. There's 2 other gates there that we're going to need to replace. One of them is the sluice gate, which is at the bottom. The other one is the service gate, which is at the top. They're worn out. They got to be replaced. Those 2 gates together replaced is about $20,000. There's a catwalk there that if we're going to do all this work, we need to look at doing something at it. It's about $5,000. Now, if you add all those numbers up, it comes to about $115,000 approximately that we need just for the gates. So that's where we are. We're somewhere in the $100,000 ballpark.
Thank you, Dwight.
Questions?
Questions for Dwight?
Dwight, that still leaves the other gate.
Which FEMA's going to take care of.
Okay. They're gonna give us 135, it's gonna cost us about 115.
Yes. They're not giving us 135. It's a reimbursement. We can go up to 135 on the replacement of the gate that they're going to cover. They will only cover whatever it costs us to put it back.
Okay, have you asked Safe Dams if one gate will be adequate?
Yeah, your water level will be at the bottom. Either you have 2 or you have neither one, because you got 2 gates at the same elevation. If one's here and one's gone, the water's just going to go over to the lowest.
Closed one side of that and just put one gate there. Is that enough to?
I have not approached him, but I don't know that would be an option, because the gate is designated as what they call a significant hazard. So it has to pass a certain volume of water during a certain rainfall event. And if you go changing that by closing areas off, that's something that they would have to review and permit.
Is there an appeals process with FEMA that we might appeal and ask them to pay for both of them?
I had a discussion with them on 2 different occasions, and they felt like the one that they were not going to cover was because it was old, rusty, and not maintained properly. But they both failed in the same rainfall event. There is probably an appeal process, don't know how successful we would be at it.
Any other questions for Commissioner Cannon?
Outside of the gates, are there any other issues that need to be tackled related to safe dams certifications?
There is some erosion control downstream, which we will be fixing, which was damaged by the flood, but FEMA is also paying for that.
But as far as TDEC is concerned, if these things were put back, the erosion restabilized, then we would comply with the Safe Dams
Yes.
Act on this facility. There's talk of dredging the silt out of a lake, and I know, Mayor, I appreciate your discussions with trying to get some help from the Guard. Do we have a gut number as to what that value is?
When you say dredge, do you mean physically remove it off of the site or just remove it around in the riverbed?
Whatever you all were talking about when,
Well,
when he was saying he wanted to get the silt out.
In 1950, whenever the dam was constructed and the lake, that creek became a lake, it was about 7.6 feet deep average.
Okay.
At this point in time, I would say it's half that. If someone else has a different opinion, I'd like to hear it, but it's probably half that. But if you want to go on a conservative side and say that you got 3 feet of silt over a 110-acre site, you got 860,000 tons of silt. So removing it, transporting it, taking it off-site, selling it, giving it away, it's almost an insurmountable task.
But I guess that's, and I wasn't trying to be
Yeah,
smart
I
with
know,
you.
I-
If we're asking, if they're working hard to pursue options with the Guard, I would imagine the major's gonna say, where am I taking it to? And do we have any options there?
I have,
Chad, help me out here. This
That's
is-
about 485,000
That's what I
cubic
was,
yards.
yes, sir.
Is it a necessity that material be removed, or can it not just be moved within the site to create habitat?
you could remove it on the site. That's what we've talked about. Removing silt is something hardly no one does because of the cost. You gotta have a place to take it. You gotta have it permitted where you take it. Most of the people pick a place on site and they dredge it or they pump it from one area to another. But even not in this volume that we're talking about at this point. If you had a 50-acre site and you wanted to pump all of this silt or 3 feet of this silt somewhere, it's not 3 feet deep where you're pumping it, it's gonna be 6 feet deep because you only have 50 acres instead of 110. So the discussions has centered around more, I think, of shifting it or moving it around and making some deeper fishing holes. By moving it around, you might be able to create some walkways, some causeways, observation decks, or something of that nature.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't, my limited background on the lakes, if you're saying we got an average of 3.5 feet deep right now, and I'm not holding you to it, this is
That's
just
okay.
kicking the tires. Seems like our rule of thumb has been you gotta have a minimum of 4 feet just for it to be a healthy lake overall. So we're gonna have to do something with some of the silt, and as you say, potentially hog out some areas for good fishing, and something's gotta be done with some of the silt. Is that a fair statement, for this to be a healthy lake?
Well, I think that's the 500-pound gorilla in the room. We seem to be hung up on, are we gonna spend $100,000 or not on a gate, and if we do, where does it come from? But then if we wanna talk about removing silt, it isn't $100,000 anymore.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Tremendous amount of money to move it, relocate it.
Commissioner Cox?
Commissioner Baker, is that silt or is that dirt of any value for fill or for, I know in my area, if you've got a big hill, it's worth some money. And guys like you come get it and use it for various things, and it's worth $1, $1.50 a yard. So is this something that local, if there's any building going on in the area, that local contractors might come get and use it for nothing?
My experience would be something that'd been settled into the lake bottom, I'd call unsuitable fill. It wouldn't be fit for building anything on. But as far as if you were able to go in and excavate channels and ponds in there and use it to take it and build islands or walkways, you got a good opportunity there, it looks like to me. You could just move it in a short distance, pretty economical to create the fishing habitat. I think the agency might have a good opportunity there to really create something really nice back once they got their dam fixed, at maybe moving 1/10 of that amount of earth to create islands and habitat, would be my opinion.
Could I have another question of whoever is representing the area? Have you talked with FEMA? Have you done any talking with the other local governments? Is there any money that might be available through some of your budgets, or do you have any influence perhaps with somebody that might influence FEMA that might give us the rest of that money?
Come to the mic, state your name, please.
Commissioner Cox, I don't know that anyone can influence FEMA. But we are trying to have negotiations, but I don't think we're going to go very far, honestly, with FEMA. The discussion of the islands and things, that's very doable, and in our opinion, it's a bank fishing lake, and the more banks we can create to have the fishing rodeo. Boy Scouts camp there twice a year. There are a lot of people use it for various and sundry things of that, which would reduce your cost, but really enhance what it is for our community is what we're looking for. As far as local dollars, we just have to determine how much that is, and if there's a need, and if it's available, if there's grants involved that we might be able to offset matches with and things of that nature. We're willing to look and just see what options are out there. Commissioner Cannon and I have already had a conversation relative to grants. And we're willing to be a partner with the agency. That's why we've had discussions with the Tennessee National Guard and West Tennessee River Basin Authority, who has experience in this as well, of trying to bring all these agencies together to try to work together to enhance our lake and to help the agency keep a lake in our area.
Thank you.
Is there a precedent ever that possibly defray costs to maybe do a toll lake for a short while till some of the expenses are paid for? Have we tried that in the state, or is that something that we want to consider?
Well, I mean, this is one of our agency fishing lakes, so there is a permit required to fish the lake, so we're already charging an additional fee. So I don't know how you would double dip. And as far as the dredging, or I don't think any of us are in Region 1 are suggesting we should dredge every bit of sediment that's washed in since the 1950s. We're just looking for some structure other than a pool table flat bottom. And Dave, I don't know if you want to say anything about Dave Rizzuto's my fisheries program
The only thing I
manager.
can say is that what was presented to the people up there was moving dirt from that lower basin area and then creating some bank fishing opportunities on either side. So more bank fishing access points. We weren't talking about removing 800,000 tons of silt. We just wanted them to move it around so that this lower basin of the lake, probably the lower 50 acres is what most of the people fish in anyway, because it's deeper. And so if we could enhance that part, make that part deeper where people fish all the time, create better bank fishing area for that excess part, then that was the intent. It wasn't to dredge the whole lake on the upper end, because on the upper end, with the farming that's done up there, and that's where all the water comes in, it's going to fill back in up there very easily. And Dwight's comment that what FEMA said, I've got to say this. that for somebody to say that it failed because of lack of maintenance is not correct. The dam has been inspected every year by TDEC. It's passed every year. We did maintenance on it on both gates in 1999. So the same maintenance was done on the left gate in 99 as was done on the right gate in 99. So to say that it failed due to lack of maintenance, but the other one didn't fail because of lack of maintenance is not correct.
If we sell a permit, is there a way to track how many people are using that lake?
I think, from Dave's figures, now obviously if you have a sportsman's license, you don't need to buy that permit, but Dave's figures, I think we make about $3,000 a year. We have made about $3,000 a year on the fishing permits for that lake.
How much is it,
How much is what?
a permit?
$5, is that the one-day use? And then you can buy the annual is 40?
Mr. Bledsoe?
If we, put the gates back in and dredged out the lower part, which is more, and made some waterways up through the upper end, which is the shallower part.
Right.
Could we utilize, 15 or 20 acres of that up there to make multi-use areas for ducks or birds or whatever, and tap into some federal dollars there that would help offset some of the dredging and all that?
That was one of the options we thought about, was let's only put half the amount of water into the lake for fishing in the lower end, but have shallow water, call it a wildlife watching WMA duck area for the upper end, and try to justify using wildlife dollars, federal dollars for it. One of the difficulties we've run into, there's a golf course and a old folks home or right on the shores, so you kind of run into a sticky situation putting a bunch of duck lines out there. It's just, and once again, the overall sentiment from the people up there is we want our fishing lake back. If we can't do it, we can't do it, but we're certainly gonna hear from the folks in that part of the county. And I don't know if y'all are, I know at one time you all were planning on bringing a bunch of folks to the Parish Commission meeting because it's in your backyard. I have a feeling there may be a few show up from the local community of that to plead their case.
Alan, can we get some bids on the work, to do the dirt work? So we'll have something to talk about next time. I guess that's
Dirt work, the dirt work as far as
the lake, we're talking about repairing a dam, and we're having a hypothetical conversation about possible cost of creating the habitat that would be suitable to warrant spending this kind of money, and we don't really know what that's gonna cost, and it'd be good to know.
Commissioner, if you're talking about moving the silt around and creating some deeper holes, we was gonna do that in-house. Not transporting it off-site or not taking it from the lake to somewhere else. That can be done in-house.
Okay.
So, of course, that's a cost to the agency, but it's not a cost that we have to contract out.
So we're not gonna depend on National Guard?
They could help, yeah. We could do the engineering and the layout, and they could help do it, sure.
Any other questions on the commission?
Sounds like it might be fair for us to decide, based on the use and the income and perhaps an increase in the fee a little bit, or perhaps not, how much we could afford to budget, expect to budget, and communicate that to the mayor, and let's see what they can come up with. And not that we're committing a solid figure, but if we came up with $30,000 or $50,000 or whatever it might be, and then let them see if they can fill in the hole, that might be something to discuss, staff or whoever, by next month or something, and talk about it, or whatever time frame.
Does anybody in the public want to comment before we move on? Nothing? Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Dwight and Alan. That concludes the Fishery Management Committee.
All right, thank you, Chairman McMillan. Before I go to audit committee, I'll make a little announcement. Anybody in the room today, commission or agency otherwise, if you're going out to any of the Turkey Federation meetings, your credentials are at the registration desk in your name. Normally, it's in the agency's name, but if you're going out today, your credentials are at the desk. All right, this time, let's go to audit committee. Chairman Bill Cox.